Hey, everybody, welcome, and thank you so much for clicking on the link and joining us for our conversation. This is the first of what I'm hoping will be maybe like a series for my channel, and it's going to be just a get to know you format. So I love the idea of having three people there because I feel like it feels like more of a conversation and kind of a natural, back and forth that happens with a group. So I have my friends here. I have Scott, who is the bald booktuber, and for the point of this episode, he is going to be, for all intents and purposes, my co-host. And we are going to be interviewing A.R. Witham, who is an author who wrote a book we both enjoyed very much, The Legend of Blackjack. So we're just going to be hanging out tonight, very casual. It is an interview, but also, we're just going to be having fun and hanging out and chatting. So, hi guys, how are you tonight?
Fantastic.
Scott, how's Arizona?
Arizona's good. I got my car AC fixed, so it's bearable again. So life is pretty all right.
Yeah, we don't do cars without AC, especially not in Arizona.
It hasn't gotten to like 115, 120 yet, so it's not been bad, but it's pretty typical Phoenix weather.
That is hot.
What part of Arizona? Phoenix?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Lake Havasu is the hottest I've ever been, and I was there when it hit 130. So.
Whew. Now, I've had some heat indexes in that range, but that's just so hot. Andy, how are you tonight?
I am spectacular. Better for talking to you.
Awesome.
We've had a great day. The last 3 months I have spent publishing a book, changing jobs, moving a house, changing school districts, and a couple other things. So it's been real easy. A lot of fun. I've got contractors in and out of my house all day long.
I saw a TikTok you made where you were showing all this plastic up in your house. Man, that's intense. That's like get a hotel mode for me. But
Right.
how long was it like that?
Oh, April.
Oh no.
I was thinking like a weekend or something. Oh my. Okay. Well, that's intense. Well,
the nice thing is we were able to take, the opportunity to have the entire house covered in plastic to turn it into a meth lab and a crime scene. So it's all worked out great for us. We're able to pay for all the construction now.
Yeah, you go through a lot of plastic that way, but it really does help with the cleanup. So
like a scene out of Dexter.
Good. All right. So like I said, I want the focus of this to definitely be about Andy and getting to know him for a couple reasons, because he's a new friend and I do want to get to know him, but also because he is a self-published author. And I don't know about you guys, I have not read a ton of self-published stuff, but when I do, it's always because I connect with somebody, I connect with the author, or I read something about them or watch a video with them and just be like, that is like a good dude. Like, that's just somebody that I would like to hang out with. That's somebody I would like to get to know. But more than anything, that's somebody that I would like to see succeed. Because sometimes, like, assholes succeed. And that's like kind of a bummer because you like their stuff a little bit, but you're like, I wouldn't hang out with them. So like when you find like someone that you're like, that's a good person, they're cool, they're smart, they're funny, I like them, I want to see this succeed. And then you actually end up really liking their book too. It's like win-win. So my hope through this video is that, we're going to talk about the book, but really, I really just want you guys to get to know the A.R. Witham so that hopefully, he can be like, that's my friend and I want to read his book. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for with this get to know you concept. So the first question, and I wrote them on a whiteboard because I'm super excited about all my little ideas here.
All right.
But
actual questions, dude.
I do. I prepared questions. That's why I didn't want to do this live. I was like, I want to ask my questions, I'm a selfish host. I love origin stories. Okay. Like, tell me your origin story. Just, what's your deal, man? Like, what do you do? Do you have kids? Do you have a wife, social security number, routing number? Like, just tell us all about you.
Bank account, everything.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's tricky. So I'm going to do it. Okay. I'll give you the 30-second elevator speech, which is slightly longer than 30 seconds. I have always been a writer. I've always been a storyteller. Instead of doing book reports in school, I made movies. So I've got movies of Cujo and basically a lot of Stephen King books. that we did in high school. We always got A's because the teacher didn't have to teach class that day because the movies were always 37 minutes long, which was the same length of the time of the class. So,
Brilliant.
yeah. And then I went to school.
So you're popular is what you're saying.
Just put all the good-looking girls on camera and you win. Basically, I went to school in Southern Indiana. When I was 22, I moved to LA. The first job I ever got was working for Quentin Tarantino during Pulp Fiction. I got to work with them. They liked me. They thought I was a good writer. They got me an agent. That agent sold the first screenplay I ever wrote. I wrote screenplays in LA for 14 years and sold about a dozen screenplays, outlines, and précis, and worked for a lot of different producers. And then Life of a Screenwriter has a shelf life. There's a new round of students that come out from Yale every year who have an uncle in the business, and little by little you get feathered out. And then my wife and I decided that we wanted to have a kid, and that having a kid, I didn't know how to raise a kid in LA. So we moved back to the Midwest and had a kid. And then I worked as the creative director for the Fox and the CBS and the CW station here in Indianapolis, won a couple of Emmys, and that's it.
I feel like you should lean into the Tarantino thing. Like that is a selling point for me.
You got that. Yeah. He's a fun guy to work with.
Oh, I'm sure.
That is so cool to me that like you've met Quentin Tarantino. That's really cool.
Oh, we've been to his house, watched movies with him. I was around with
watch movies with Quentin Tarantino.
Oh yeah, it's great because he knows every single movie that's ever been written, and he just babbles the entire time.
He is a student of film. He knows everything about movies, and I just think that's so cool when someone makes something that they love. Like they were able to make a job out of what they love, but it's his passion. I mean, it's what makes him who he is, and that's so cool when someone can turn that into a living. I love that.
Yeah.
Passion. So speaking of passion, the word passion, I've heard you a couple times now refer to The Legend of Blackjack as a passion project.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean to you? And like, what are your goals for this book?
See, the two things to me are kind of at odds. So a passion project is something that you do because you can't help yourself. I need to tell this story. I need to put on this play. I need to create this work of art so I can hang it in a gallery or in my house. I don't really care what the result of it is. It's something that you feel compelled.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, I whether that's a book or a screenplay or a YouTube channel or a TikTok channel or whatever, just people feel compelled to do these things. And I think most of us don't really expect like a commercial success out of it. We do it because we have to. Mm-hmm. And so if there's a commercial success that happens, that's icing on the cake. But you were going to make the cake whether or not you and your mom were the only people who are ever going to see it.
Yeah.
Right. That cake was getting made. That's what a passion project is.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you were able to see your passion project to fruition. But more than anything, I'm glad that like eyes are getting on it and that we got to read it because, like, I mean, sometimes you read a book and you're like, did I imagine that was good? Like, I do that not just with your book. Trust me, I do that with like half the books I read. I'm like, was I just in the mood for that? Like, you wonder, you question your own taste sometimes, but it's awesome when you recommend a book to somebody and then they message you back and they're like, whoa, it was way better than I thought it was going to be. That was so good. And that makes me excited. So I can't imagine how that makes you feel because like this was, a passion project for you. And like you said, you were going to write it either way. And like, I feel like that is evident when you read this, that this is something that was important to you. And it was something that came from your heart and you wrote it because it needed to be on page. And so I'm just really glad that it is getting some eyes on it. And I would love nothing more for this book to become like a big deal because I think it is a big deal. I really like it. I think it's really good. So congratulations on that.
That's Sorry, Scott, what were you going to
Go ahead.
No, I was.
I'm a bad interrupter. I get
No,
called
you're
out for
good.
it all the time. So I'm just doing my thing over here. So if you
gonna
want to
ask you a
keep
question
talking, just keep
because,
talking.
I know I talked about it and Madison talked about it, and I think Andrew also talked about it. So, is Narnia a series that you enjoy? Because I felt Narnia vibes in the book. So, not in a copy way, but in an homage
Right.
type
You
of
and
way.
me, brother. You and me.
So,
Good.
we both love Narnia. Madison and I both are huge fans. So, I wanted to make sure to ask that because, it was a big part of my childhood and what got me into fantasy.
So for me, okay, here's what's weird. The book is published because I needed it to be available for my son, Will, who is 11 and just barely on the cusp of
Right.
being at the point where the story would make sense for him.
Right.
His entire childhood, I have read The Hobbit to him.
So cool.
Like over the course of 3 years, right? We'll just read part of a chapter and part of a chapter. And he's deeply, deeply invested in The Hobbit. And that's where I started. When I was in third grade, I read The Hobbit and I thought, this is the most amazing thing ever. And I went to I think it was my family and said, are there more books like this?
Yep.
And that Christmas, I got that 7-book Narnia set.
Yeah, I've got it over there. Yeah.
You know, the little with the white
I
cover.
went to. It's in Lucy's room, but I have it.
Yeah. And that was, I mean,
I have a daughter named Lucy. I really like Chronicles of Narnia. Yeah, when I was I was homeschooled, and we had a whole 3-month Chronicles of Narnia unit study. A unit study is a very homeschool terminology, I think, but we deep dove, okay? And we all had to, as kids, we had to invent a recipe and make up what we thought Turkish delight would be.
So
And it was so fun. Everyone had their own idea of what they thought it would taste like, what they thought it would look like. And my mom just really made things special. So yeah, Chronicles of Narnia is super special to me. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I haven't read it in a long time, but I did read The Magician's Nephew last year because I thought I'm going to do it the way Scott would not necessarily approve of. Scott's
always publication, always.
His catchphrase for life is publication order always. But I thought so I have an omnibus of Chronicles of Narnia as well, and it has Magician's Nephew first, and so I was like, I'm going to try reading it this way, and then life got crazy and I didn't end up picking up the rest of them. But Lucy's going to start it for the first time this year, so I'll probably read it along with her and do a reread with her.
The
newer box sets have Magician's Nephew first because that was Lewis's preferred deal. But yeah, my box
she should have written it first then.
Publication order, so that's the way I read it. So.
Well, and one of the things about Narnia, and quite frankly, one of the things about The Hobbit, and then more so in Lord of the Rings, is that there's a story there that's for a 12-year-old
right.
kid, right? And it's just straight. And then when you're 16 or 18, you read that story in a different way. And when you're 25, you read that story in a different way. And when you're 35, you read that story in a different way. And it's like, it's an onion. You just keep peeling off layers of it. And what I think is masterful about the way C.S. Lewis put it together is that it worked for kids.
Yep.
That's really the hardest thing to do is try and infuse all of those layers in there, but still make it easily accessible for somebody who's not looking for that, not interested in it, just show me adventure.
Yeah.
And, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe has been discussed and disseminated and taken apart and examined piece by piece. And, layers and layers and layers of majestic meaning built into that. But it's what? 30,000 words, 33,000 words, right?
That's not long.
It's this big. And for all of that emotion that all of us feel reading that story to be contained in that little kiss of a book is just amazing to me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've been wanting to go back and revisit for a while. It's been several years, so it's time one of these days to go back for my next revisit.
Well, and for us, I mean, you can digest that book in a day, right?
Yeah.
Good, love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's really no reason not to revisit them, especially because like I'm an audiobooker. I love
Mhm.
my audiobooks, and you can find those audiobooks for they're a couple of hours long, and you can find them free pretty easily too.
Yeah.
And they've been recorded by so many different people that you can find what like fits your vibe. So yeah, I'm a big fan of those, but this would be my first time doing them on audio, so I'm excited to get to those.
I have the
soon.
books. That's how I did them the last time I read it. So, what to do.
Yeah, I think there is a collection in the Audible Plus catalog that's available. So that's no reason not to, right?
Speaking of audiobooks, we've got a narrator here with us. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I don't know. I didn't probably word this right in my review, but I get a little sometimes I get a little nervous when authors read their own books because
Because you should be.
You should be. Like Stephen King, why? This one's kind of a hot take because a lot of people love this audiobook, but I think Christopher Buehlman reading The Black Tongue Thief kind of like soured my experience with that. I didn't like that one very much. I think, well, here's why I didn't like it, okay? The accent was really, really, really thick and heavy. And so, and to the point where it's kind of hard for me to understand. And I was like, well, that's fine. Like, he's the author. He can't help the way he talks. And then I realized he was from Florida and he did it on purpose. And I was like, well, now I'm annoyed. So, and it's not that he didn't do a good job because like he sings in that book and he sings really well. Like, it's not that it's bad. It's just too much. That was kind of hard to understand, and it was on purpose. So I had a couple experiences that made me just like not super sure about that. And oh my gosh, to say I was pleasantly surprised is an understatement because like I thought it was so good. And I'm kind of picky. I am.
We're both huge audiobook fans and both love the narrative. So
do you guys know the story behind that thing?
I know that you were in like a car dealership recording.
I got a sound.
I don't know why that was the choice necessarily. It was like a favor a buddy had to give you or something.
I can sum it up in 3 words. I am cheap.
That's good. That's a good reason.
Well, it worked. I mean, like I thought it was really good. And like to the point where I could
like you've done voice acting in other mediums or whatever, because it like you couldn't tell that you were an amateur at this. Like you sounded like a professional audiobooker.
I got to be honest with you, man. I've listened to 2 audiobooks my entire life.
Wow, that's impressive.
It's extremely impressive.
Because I'll tell you what, like I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and some of them are read by actors. So not professional audiobook narrators, but like J.K. Simmons or like, and so they do a good job, but it's not the same as a professional audiobook narrator.
Right.
Like they do a great job. They have, they're professional actors. They know how to read, but it's not the same as a professional narrator. And you could pass as a professional narrator. So did you like doing it?
I can fool you into thinking that I know what I'm doing.
You did,
but did you enjoy it? Like when was it something you were just like, oh my gosh, another day in the booth, or did you kind of like it?
It's a combo plate. So like the reason the audiobook got done is because if you're an independent author, you need to have an ebook, a paperback, and an audiobook, because that's the 3 main ways that people digest what they read.
That's what people want. Yeah.
So it was foolish to not have an audiobook. It's also $4,000. Right. So, to me, I was delighted to go into that studio booth every week because it was free.
Yeah.
And it was fun. Like, honestly, I thought the whole time, okay, I'm checking a box. I'm making sure that I have an audiobook. They're going to rip me apart for it, but hopefully most of them will read the other.
It was excellent.
And so, but going into the audio booth, it was like, okay, just tell them a story. And I think I tend to go pretty fast because I don't have a lot of confidence that any of it's any good. So I think that's maybe part of what makes the audiobook at least move quickly, because I am trying to get you to the next sequence that matters.
Well,
I didn't feel like any of it was like rushed or anything. Like I felt like it read really nicely and listened.
I promise you, if I would have hated the audiobook, I would have said it. I would have said, "What a fantastic book! God, this guy should have hired somebody." Like I would have said it.
I'll help the couch next time.
Well, and I sent it to a buddy of mine, and because I went through the whole thing, and like you have to check it all yourself and make sure everything's okay and audio levels and that. And then I sent it to a friend of mine, and she like took a week and listened to it. And I said, "So, what do you think?" And she was like, "Well, I think it'll get you past the first month, but you're going to have to hire somebody to redo it because you're not an actor."
Absolutely agree. Yeah.
And I will say that this is for, I don't know if your friend listens to a lot of audiobooks or not, but I've found that when people who aren't super used to audiobooks listen to an audiobook, they usually don't speed it up at all.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but I cannot do any audiobook at one time speed.
Yes,
not
yeah.
because I'm in a hurry or it's that it doesn't sound quite normal. Like listen to us talking right now. Like we're talking pretty fast, but no one's having any trouble understanding each other because we're used to it. And so when you listen to an audiobook where they're reading it's not even that it's slow, it's that the cadence isn't normal. And so you have to speed it up to just make it sound like it makes sense. And so sometimes I'll listen to, somebody will say, I tried the audiobook and I just hated it. It took me forever to get through it. And I'm like, well, did you speed it up at all? And they're like, well, no, I'm afraid I couldn't. And I'm like, I'm not saying like crank it up to like, chipmunk speed, but just make it to where it sounds normal to your ears and you'll probably have an easier time with it. And so you just wonder about stuff like that, because a lot of times I've found that when I can kind of coach somebody through their problems, it's really not an audiobook problem. It's just like tweaking it to your preferences. So you can throw that out at people. If they say that it's not very good, be like, speed it up. It'll be over faster if nothing else.
Well, but that's one of the things is I don't care if you're self-pub or indie or you're backed by, Random Penguin. It doesn't matter. There are going to be some people that don't like the story. It's okay.
Right.
Right. It's not to their taste. It's that, oh, the audiobook didn't do it for me. Cool. It's all right. It doesn't have to be for everybody.
It's okay. Yeah.
That's true.
I'm just amazed anybody liked it.
Well, and I understand that, but and you understand that. Like that's just, everyone knows that not everyone is gonna like everything, and not everything. There's not one thing that is for everyone.
No.
But like, doesn't that still hurt your feelings super bad? Like when someone just doesn't like it.
It would
like really
like rejection of any kind.
Like I would be able to intellectually understand that and then still be like heartbroken.
Yeah. No, I do a thing on the Oasis Discord where any like new writer who got their first 1-star review, I congratulate them and I go on and I have a drink with them live and commiserate and say, good job. You're a man now, Toby. You're right. Because if you put yourself out there, you're gonna get dinged.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
it's so true.
Wants to kill themselves because nobody likes my book. No, that one person didn't like your book. It's okay. It's okay.
See, for me, I'd like intellectually, I'd be able to separate and be like, oh yeah, like
yes,
70 people were positive and this one person, but then emotionally I would be wrecked. So even intellectually, I'd be like, great, everything's, and then the other side of me would be like, that life is terrible. Why am I doing this? So it's good that you could set that, like, that's a good thing.
Oh, it is. Do you have any other hobbies that you think are worth mentioning? Like something I would like, do you do like origami or like collect quarters or anything like that?
It's very specific.
Like specifically either of those.
I'm going to start now.
Well, I'm just saying, like, we know you write. You've written movies and TV, and you're hanging out with Quentin Tarantino and writing books, and yeah, like covering your house in plastic. You're very interesting. But like, as far as hobbies go, is there anything else that like has a part of your heart?
I like adventures. I really do, and I feel like
traveling and stuff.
Well, yeah, those are out there, and you don't have to go to Australia, right? Mm-hmm. There are adventures waiting for you outside right now. And I love hiking. I love, like, I've done not the entire thing, but I've done 2 months on the Appalachian Trail twice.
That's cool.
I've
Wow.
canoed to the Arctic Circle, right? You go, oh, let's go climbing and bouldering. Okay, I'm in, right? Well, let's go hiking to this new place. Like my best buddy Brian and I go on a big camping trip once every 5 years just to make sure that we do it, right? Because I think one of the
That's
things
important. Yeah.
once you have kids, I think your time stops being as much yours,
Sure.
and you need to keep you, because otherwise you're just a servant to the child, and that's honorable and noble, but you lose some of you. So making sure that you keep time that's yours as a parent and go on those adventures or whatever that thing is that makes you happy. Origami. I think making sure that you keep that stuff is important. So I like being outside and seeing the trees above my head and say, oh, there's a lake. Let's figure out a way to the other side of it. I love that stuff.
Well, Scott and I do not do those things.
Yeah, I'm not an outside person, but I'm glad that you are.
I know, I'm indoorsy. I wish, like, for a long time, I really tried to like make myself be that person because I kind of felt like, in order to be, I don't know, like it just felt like I needed to like those things. And then at one point, I admitted to myself that I'm like, I just don't.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see your pictures of you doing those things. Like, I genuinely hope you tag me on Facebook. Like, I want to see him. Like, we have a friend, Medic, and he lives in Hawaii right now, and he is constantly like teaching, disabled children how to surf and hiking up all these mountains and like doing this amazing stuff. And I'm just like, please send me all the pictures. But I don't even want to go to Hawaii to hike up a mountain. I just don't. So that's okay. I like other things. Maybe origami next.
Origami's good.
Yeah.
Mostly just buying books and reading them.
Well, that's the thing to me, is that it doesn't matter who you are, what your capabilities are, what you like. Reading allows you to live so many vicarious lives that you can experience all kinds of things that I've never climbed Everest, but I've read John Krakauer's book, right? I didn't get to experience World War II, but I got to read, the Winston Churchill biography. All of those things have something for you. And if the writing is good enough, you feel like you're in their shoes. And when you feel that and those emotions become yours.
Lived 1,000 lives. Yeah, no,
That's right.
It is. I know it's magical. That's why, books are, and I trust me, I'm a TV girl. I'm a movie girl. I have not spent a lot of time doing either of those things since really getting back into reading in the last couple of years. But it is a different type of magic on a page.
Yeah, I agree.
Because what's cool about a movie and TV is you're seeing someone else's vision of a story. And I feel like that is such a treat. Like someone who was just made to do that. Someone who's, like you said, a natural born storyteller. Like I could never convey a story visually the way that these professionals can. And I think it's such a treat to get a snapshot in their vision of that story. But what's even cooler is that like all three of us could read the same book and then have a very different idea of, like, we were in a voice chat on Discord a little while ago, and we were talking about they're talking about all these guys are in there talking about how they're so scared of spiders, but they were talking about I was like, well, what did the spiders bother you in Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn? And they're like, what spiders in Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn? And I was like, and I started explaining it, and they're like, I didn't see those as spiders. And I was like, I saw spiders, but it's a fantasy beast, and it had legs, and I thought they said arachnid, but whatever. No one else saw spiders. But I was like, that's okay. Isn't that cool that like Brent saw like half man, half ant? And I was like, oh, I thought they were just like wise spiders. So like, it just goes to show but isn't that cool that we had totally different ideas of it? And then when we got to talking about it, I got a glimpse into how he saw it. He got a glimpse into how I saw it. So books are just really, really cool. So what are you guys reading right now?
Go ahead,
Ed. Boy's Life. I'm still working my way through.
Yay.
Beautiful.
I'm sick and tired of everybody telling me that the other book is better, so knock it off.
I like Boys better, and I'm a huge McCammon fan.
He likes Boys Life better.
We'll get to my McCammon in a minute. Go ahead.
And then I'm reading Zach Argyle. Boy, you want to never mind. No, I'm going to skip that. Zach Argyle's second book because I'm reading interviewing him right before his book release for Bonds of Chaos. And I'm no longer a member of NetGalley, so I'm not going to get the third book until it launches the day after the interview. So I'm making sure I'm up to stuff. And then I'm always reading one Stephen King. And so right now that's Salem's Lot because
Beautiful.
Yeah,
So good.
nice. How long have you always been reading one Stephen King?
as
Is
long
that like
as
a?
writing them.
That's amazing.
Excellent.
That's amazing. I read my first Stephen King book, I mean, probably about 3 years ago. So like I am a newbie when it comes to Stephen King, but I've read a lot since then. But my mom read Stephen King when I was growing up, and I remember seeing her with those big books and just thinking my mom was so edgy and she was so worldly and cool because she was reading these like horror books, and I thought that was really cool. And now look at me. So I think that's really cool.
11/22/63 remains my favorite Stephen King book. So,
There.
and Mads and I just finished up Dark Tower last month. So
We did, yep.
finally getting some street cred around here, so it's good.
Yes, we are quartet.
You know, yeah, for content, I think if you get to the end of Dark Tower, you at least deserve respect.
I was thinking the other day, I was like, I haven't really Scott and I haven't really had a heart to heart since we finished the Dark Tower, but I do feel like I need some like verbal therapy to just really process what happened to me. I finished that audiobook as I was on a road trip, and I was pulling into my mom's driveway as I was finishing it. And I like walked in and I like didn't make eye contact with anybody. And I like sat on the couch, and she's like, "What happened?" And I was like, "I just finished a book." And she was like, "Oh, I get it." And she was like, "Guys, give her a few minutes." I was like, I don't want to talk about it. I just need to. I wasn't even like mad. It was just like disoriented or something. I don't know.
I told Joanna on her video, I said I felt like it was cathartic in some ways. And I described the journey as equal parts, what did I say? Confusing, frustrating, like triumphant in places. Like it's just a really weird series that is going to now be in my top 10.
But in the end, like the reason I read Stephen King books is for the character work, and it's for the dialogue, and it's for the moments, the slice of life stuff. And so for that reason, I don't regret reading a single one of those books because he does it masterfully in every single one. But like he's never been a super plot-driven reader, so why would I let it surprise me that this 7-book series kind of had a bizarre plot?
Yeah.
Like it's Stephen King. Why would I expect him to not act like Stephen King when he's writing a series? So
Who he is.
Did you read The Stand? Okay, we know.
I did, yes. Yeah, and again, like I know, like the Stand is overly long, and I'm like, but I loved the part that loses people. That was my favorite part of the book.
I love it.
So,
Yeah, and The Stand was my favorite book of all time until the reshuffling kind of happened, and the fact that book does not have an ending does not affect my enjoyment of that book at all.
Sure.
right.
Right. I will go back to Tom Cullen in a second right now.
Sure.
We'll go there, and you ask me and I'm there.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to say plot is overrated. I think if you can do characters as well as King, it just doesn't matter.
It's not really necessary, right?
Yeah.
Who is your favorite character from The Stand?
Stu.
Stu's a good choice.
I'm with Stu. There's a lot. You're a taker, Larry. You're a taker, Larry. And that's the line that sticks with me, because when I was younger, like there was a voice in my head all the time that was, "Don't be Larry."
Mm.
And that's the one that always stuck with me. Franny's got a lot of appeal to her in the way that she approaches things, but at the end of the day, it's Stu for me.
It's a great choice.
Mine's Larry.
Well,
I do like Larry a lot too. I don't know that I have a favorite.
It's too hard. And Nick, and like I could, yeah.
Nick's great.
Nick's fantastic, but why Larry? Why? Give me. I'm not saying he's a bad character.
No, I think Larry, because Larry is a character that could have gone either way. I think he could have gone to either side. I mean, because, okay, first of all, I love an understandable villain and I love a gray character. And I think he very easily could have gone to the other settlement. And he, to me, is the type of character that I feel like any of us could be Larry if we just weren't careful. Yeah. Because Larry wasn't a bad guy. He just wasn't a good guy. And you have to make choices to be good. And so I think to me, he was a very, very human character because, and in the end, he ended up doing some really great things that did make him a hero. Like, he had his moments of redemption, but in the end, it's like Larry is what you want to just be careful because like being in the middle is sometimes, you know, it's worse than being one way or the other. And so I felt like he was really relatable and really human. And I liked the way he was written.
Scott?
I think I like what Mike says, which is that this is how it would happen for me, where I have the popular thing and then the world ends. Like that feels like something that would happen to me. So I have a little.
Maybe can you dig your man?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. It's been many years since I've read it, but so much of it still sticks with me.
Gotta fix that.
Well, and the great thing about Larry is that Larry's the one that has really the redemption arc. Mm-hmm. And there's always really appealing to be a part of that.
Sure. That's why Jaime Lannister is a great character in Song of Ice and Fire. That's right. Best redemption arc in fiction.
Yep.
I'm so glad I'm reading that again right now.
Yeah, I'm starting again in January. I can't wait. So I just finished up Empire of Silence. That's book 1 of Sun Eater. It's one of my favorite series.
Reread for him, yeah.
Christopher Rocchio is awesome. And yesterday and into today, I started this is now my 6th McCammon book. This is book 4 in the Corbett series, Matthew Corbett series, which is my favorite thing that McCammon.
Yeah, you said that earlier, yeah.
I read Swan Song first in December. Unbelievable, so good. And then I read Boy's Life. I'm like, somehow I love this even more. And then I read Corbett in June or July, and I just have fallen in love with this series. So the dude is just money for me. I love everything he touches.
Nice.
I'm reading nothing right now. I finished a book today, and I finished a book last night. And, well, I guess technically I'm reading The Forgetting Moon. So I'm doing a reread of Brian Lee Durfee's The Forgetting Moon. And it's book 1 of the 5 Warrior Angel series. It is a trilogy, and the 3rd one is coming out soon. So we're doing a reread leading up to the final book release. And I'm only 5 chapters in, which I think is like 11% or 9% or something. So I've barely started that one. So I'll probably start that in full force tomorrow, unless I think of something else kind of medium size that I can.
Golden Fool.
Would you call Golden Fool medium size? I mean, I guess I probably would. Yeah, it's probably about 500 pages.
Andy, have you read any Robin Hobb, my very favorite author of all time?
I read Robin Hobb 20 years ago, and I'm so sorry to say that I don't remember a damn thing. I remember Fitz existed. That's it.
Perfect time to restart.
Right?
So we love
I read Farseer and Live Ship 20 years ago, and I loved them. And then last year I went through all of Realm of the Elderlings, and she's my favorite author of all time. So
nice.
I was listening to what you were saying, Andy, on probably a TikTok about how you appreciate prose so much, and that's what makes you love, or one thing you love about Name of the Wind. And as you know, I have not read Name of the Wind yet, but I plan to this year.
Book.
But it makes me think, if you like that, like first person retrospective, and you really appreciate prose and stuff, then maybe trying Farseer again would be right up your alley.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. Walking into Name of the Wind expecting it to be a good book is a recipe for disaster.
I read it when it was brand new. There was no hype around it. I knew nothing about it. I saw it on a shelf. I picked it out, and I've never said this is the most meaningful book ever, or whatever other nonsense people say, best things, and none of that stuff. I love the book, and then I really enjoyed the second. So,
but please don't walk into that book thinking, "Oh, I'm going to love this," because other people.
Sure.
You get what you get out of it. In all honesty, the first 100 pages, you're like, there's a kid and he's an orphan. He's living alone in the streets. I have seen this Dungeons and Dragons story 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And he's
I
going
love
to
it because it's a story about stories. There's something meta about it that I really enjoy.
right.
There's
Well,
a lot of
and
storytelling.
then, yeah, and then it gets even worse because it's the Dungeons and Dragons rogue story. Oh wait, no, he's going to go to a wizard school.
I do love magical school setting. Like
Which
I
is
do
why
like
I think you'll enjoy it.
I do.
Because I like the school stuff in it. Not everybody does, but I
Well,
like.
I'm
I
gonna
really
try
love when
this
he's
year for
learning about
sure.
sympathy and all this kind of stuff. Like, I love all that stuff.
And I couldn't care less about magic systems, and that one is so interesting.
Yeah.
It's, you know,
Yeah, magic systems are something that's definitely not make or break for me. Like if you have a cool magic system, awesome. If there's barely any magic, that's fine too.
Yep.
So speaking of, we touched on this a tiny bit, but tropes. What are your I love fantasy tropes. Like if they're executed well, I want you to cram as many as you can in a book because it's what makes me feel like it's why I like fantasy. So what are some of your favorite fantasy tropes that when you see it, you're like, I love that. Like, I mean, in your book alone, I feel like I hate to call them tropes because it sounds like I'm being negative, but I just mean that in a way of like it's a plot device that we recognize and we like it. That's what I mean. And like, found family and gosh, there were several in there that was just like, oh, those are my
There's
favorite.
a little element of Reluctant Hero, which I really love. Reluctant Hero.
Reluctant Hero, Animal Companion.
Mm-hmm.
Some people read it as Chosen
Wise
One.
Mentor.
Could be Chosen One. Yeah,
I don't really think about it as Chosen One because it's not him making any choices. I thought. Oh, sorry. The answer to the question is coming of age.
Oh yeah.
To me,
That's an easy button for me.
Yeah, because that's to me almost. If your fantasy story does not include a coming of age element, you damn well better knock it out of the park, right? Because to me, that's almost what fantasy is for, is to take you from where you are to where you're going in a metaphorical way that is emotionally available for people as they come and grow by using allegory. And so that is absolutely my favorite one. I'll tell you the one where I thought I really screwed it up with Legend of Blackjack was the Fuji, because I fought myself forever because I didn't want Fuji in the book, but I needed Jack to have a neutral sounding board who didn't judge him for the things that he was feeling in the last third of the book. And the only way to do it was, and I thought, okay, this is the moment I lose all of the adults. The kids will think it's neat.
No, listen. That Animal Companion is hands down. Like I said that coming of age is my easy button. Honestly, Animal Companion is the correct answer for me. Like I'm a huge sucker for an Animal Companion, and Fuji, it did it for me. Like I am a huge fan of Fuji. I loved every second Fuji was on the page. I was into it. So thank you for not cutting Fuji.
It was more like adding Fuji, actually, because I get, you kind of get through version 2 of the book and you're like, I don't have somebody for him to talk to because I got Rooker who's going to yell at him. I got Valerian who's going to tell him, well, do the right thing. And I just needed somebody to go, okay.
Well, and it's smart because otherwise, what are they going to do? Just ramble in their head? Like that doesn't work with the exposition style that you chose. And also it feels so info dumpy when that happens sometimes. So how you need, like I talk to my dog when no one else is listening. So obviously he needed a little buddy.
Yeah.
Yes. But good choice on Fuji. Do you guys have a favorite of all time animal companion?
Night Eyes.
Robin Hob for you for sure.
That's easy. Night Eyes the wolf is the best animal companion in fiction. Sorry.
What is it? The goat in Dark Tower?
Oh, he's not a goat. He's a Billy Bumbler.
Boy, he's a Billy Bumbler. Oi.
Really well
Also-
book.
Yeah, in our defense, we did just read it. But yeah, Oi.
Yeah.
No, Oi from
Oi
no,
is
that
good.
is like
Oi,
excellent.
oi.
Oi, the
Just
Billy Bumbler.
because one of these things is not like the other. One of these things
But
is.
he's Quartet still, yeah.
That's right. I love Oi.
And I loved the way he would talk. Ache. Yeah. So good.
Ache.
Loved it. Honestly, my favorite animal companion from fantasy, this is a cheater answer, is Appa from Avatar: The Last Airbender. But that's not a book, that's a TV show. But Appa is the best boy ever written. I love that show. I know it's animated and I know it's technically for kids, but it's still one of the best fantasy series I've ever. But one of the best fantasy stories from beginning to end. It has everything I need in a fantasy story, and I've actually never read the novelization because like they wrote novels for them after the show came out, and that's always that's not quite what I'm looking for probably, and it's very very middle grade. So I haven't actually tried the novels, but I love that show so much. But in literature, I mean, it's hard for me not to pick a wolf just because there's so many good fantasy wolves out there. But I mean, yeah, I'm a big Grey Wind fan from
Grey
Song
Wind's
of
cool.
Ice and Fire. I love wolves.
Yeah.
And then of course Storm from Faithful and the Fallen. Have you ever read any John Gwynne?
No, Gwen. I've been told that Gwen is a little rough for me.
Okay. I would say have you read A Song of Ice and Fire?
Yeah.
It's less than that, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. I'll tell you my experience with A Song of Ice and Fire is I read again because I was into fantasy and then I was out of fantasy, and Roth was the one that brought me back because I was like, nobody writes like this. And,
right.
But when I read, I think the first two books of A Song of Ice and Fire way back when, I didn't continue because I was like, I don't have anybody to root for. Right? I feel like all of these people are kind of bad.
That's not wrong. That's
See, like I said, I love a morally gray character. Like again, I'm not into nihilism. Like I don't like bad for the sake of bad. No. I do like a very human, morally gray character. So again, do I like all the characters in Song of Ice and Fire? No. Like some of them are clear villains, but for the most part, even some of the good guys, I don't like them because they're too good. Like I don't know. Like I really do like a very human, understandable. And I say morally gray because I think that's kind of what we are sometimes. Like I said, unless you really try not to be. Like it has to be a choice to not be a morally gray character, I think.
Don't be Larry.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I think Larry's so cool. It's like I like the way he's written. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think too, you got to remember that book was for geeks, and that show was so good and so well crafted. First 3 seasons, 4 seasons, whatever argument we want to have, I don't care. But it was so well crafted, and you were invested in all those characters so much because of those actors' portrayals and the way that it all came together, that it made, for me, the books better. Because I felt I had more of an understanding of what he was doing. And I was like, I was able to lock into it a little bit more because, I mean, I wound up reading the whole thing. I don't know. It's something stupid. It was like, for me, stupid, which is like 7 weeks to do the whole thing all the way through.
That's fast. Yeah.
That's impressive.
I don't read.
Those are big books.
I like taking 2-3 weeks to read a book. I like going slow.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it.
But I just thought that series was so good. And the other thing that I thought was really interesting is after that show came out is when I discovered Rothfuss, which is when I got back into fantasy, which is when I discovered that my fantasy had changed.
Sure.
Right? Robin Hobb, Harry Brooks, all that kind of stuff that I was into with fantasy. Fantasy took a dark turn.
Right.
Hob gets pretty dark.
Well, that's true.
You'll find out if you read it.
No, I've been told that Hob gets dark, although it's mainly just Fitz is stupid and makes bad decisions, right?
I don't agree with that.
I don't know.
Poor Fitz.
but there was,
Fitz is dumb and he makes a lot of bad decisions, but that's not all of it.
that's not the real. Okay. And Hob is one of those have to read. So I'll go back and reread the stuff that I already read and forgot, and then keep going with that.
If you're into beautiful prose, she in terms of prose,
some of the best.
She outdoes Rothfuss for me.
Right. Especially because it's not over the top. It's not like, here we go again with another poem. No. It's very accessible and easy to read, but it's still like, it'll just stop you in your tracks sometimes. You're like, why am I crying right now? It's just so beautiful. And I love that.
It's probably good I don't read physical books because they would just be highlighted and damaged like crazy. Instead, I'd use my Kindle and it's just highlighted like crazy. So
yeah.
It's good stuff.
I wish I read more in the Kindle because it does have so many great features with highlighting and stuff. Mm-hmm. And when we were on our trip, I was reading more from my Kindle than I usually do. And 2 times I came across a word that I was like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I have no idea what that word means. It was just really nice.
Look it up.
Just tap it and get the definition right there. So yeah, Kindles are cool, but it's never my go. It never reach for unless I'm in a situation where it's the only option. Yeah, I just really like holding books.
I like holding books, but I like my wife not yelling at me, so I read on tablet.
That is a good thing to have the wife not yelling. I can agree with that.
It's like she never tells me to turn the light off anymore. I'm just like.
Well, I will say I've fallen asleep with books before, and it's a lot easier to fall asleep with a paperwhite than it is with an 800-page fantasy book that falls on your face or falls on the floor, and you rip it is very handy. They're water resistant. They're really great. I should make myself use it more often because every time I use it, I'm like, I like this. This is nice.
I do have an author question for you, if you don't mind, Andy. So Rocky always talked about he doesn't really read any new sci-fi or fantasy because it's ruined him. And Abercrombie said something similar, like he can't read modern speculative fiction. Has your reading taste changed, or what you read changed since you became an author? Do you read differently now than you used to? Does it harm the process any for you?
Than I did 90 days ago?
Right, yeah. Well, you've been writing the thing more than 90 days ago. You know what I mean?
Well, and some of what their input was that they're constantly getting compared to these other authors. And so they're kind of I would rather be able to say, actually, I've never read it, or something like that. Or they're afraid that it's going to subconsciously influence them and their story that's in progress. So I can see that when you're in the zone, kind of wanting to tunnel vision it, because what if you really love something and then subconsciously you're writing it into your story? You're like, oh no. So I don't know. I've never written anything. I don't know how that goes.
Well, yeah, I think, let me see if I can figure out an answer to Scott's question.
Sorry if it's a dumb question.
No,
it's just something I always wonder.
It's an interesting question. I think if you're in the same vein all the time, if you read fantasy all the time, mm-hmm. you kind of get a little bit numbed to some of it, where I've seen this and I've seen this and I've seen this and I've seen this kind of over and over. And so to me, I'll read 1 out of every 3 books will be fantasy.
That makes sense.
And the others will be, just I'll do a nonfiction, I'll do a fiction, and then I'll do a fantasy, rinse and repeat. The thing that I will say is that Kindle Unlimited is the best writer tool that I've ever seen in my life, because, and this is unthinkable to everyone else, and I understand I'm bad, but I will go into any Kindle, I will pick a Kindle Unlimited fantasy story at random and read 50 to 100 pages and then dump it. Sure. Because I don't want to read the story. I'm not interested in the story. What I am interested in is how they put their prose together, how they put their introductions together, how they, what are they doing? What's different? What's interesting? Because, I mean, really, you were talking about, I don't mean tropes, because don't worry about it, because all authors steal from each other all the time. That's the job. And that's the thing that I like, is being able to take stuff that is not in fantasy fiction and put it into a fantasy setting and pull from those different items. Because I mean, there are 25 different books that influenced Legend of Blackjack, at least a third of them are Stephen King.
Sure.
Right. It's got nothing to do with fantasy whatsoever. There's, dashes and pieces of other stuff in there. But being able to take influences, stuff from things that are not fantasy, forces you to come up with a way to twist it to make it work in your world and what you're trying to say. I mean, because to me, like, the emotion is the boss, right? All I care about is what you're feeling on this page. So whatever I'm trying to, whatever empathy I'm trying to convey, I don't care if I steal that from a autobiography of Teddy Roosevelt. If there's two sentences in there, cool, great, let's make that work.
No, that's good.
You just kind of draw those pieces from wherever.
My favorite thing you did in the book, so this was my favorite part of it, was you got Jack is so used to knowing everything and doing everything perfectly and everything's great. And then he's over there and he can't read. Like, it's just debilitating to him. That's my favorite thing in the whole book. Like, every time I read anything about that, I'm just laughing to myself because I'm like, that's exactly how I would be. There'd be one thing I couldn't do and it would be just debilitating. And I would
ruin your day.
Yeah.
Well, and I loved the idea of taking somebody they're smart. They know they're smart. They've always been smart. They've always taken it for granted. Take that away.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you're an idiot who can't read. Have fun.
Well, and there's a great sense of balance there because, and again, I don't think this is a spoiler because it's spelled out pretty easily early on, but like Jack is going somewhere where everyone else is also out of their element. They've always had magic to lean on, and all of a sudden they don't, and so they're out of their elements, and so they're feeling kind of stupid. And then they think he's the answer, and he's like secretly, listen, I can't read, so
I don't know what I'm doing.
Like, the playing field is pretty even in a lot of ways, and I like that he's able to take his real world Earth knowledge and apply it in situations that they're like, you're magic. And he's like, no, I just watched an episode of Law and Order once. I know how this does. Or, I thought that was like the coolest mashup. And I just really, really thought that was clever. So I love that.
It's that whole Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court idea.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, I love that. Okay, so one of my favorite parts about the book, and this is going to sound like not a big deal, but it makes a big difference to me, is I love that you have chapter titles, and they aren't just like chapter 1, chapter 2, I feel like naming chapters is a dying art, and I don't see it nearly as much as I want to. And also, it's probably not a big deal to a lot of people, but I love when authors add in these quotes. Sorry, I'm like backwards here. These quotes that are out of context, that have nothing to do with the story, that are from things we would recognize, like Mark Twain and, Spanish proverbs and stuff like that. And you're bringing them in, and it gives you a little bit of context with something that's familiar. And I just think that's a really good way to keep the reader engaged. And it's kind of like anchoring and reminding you that, like, this is a story. Like, you're being told a story. And don't take it too seriously because you're being told a story. And here's some reference points. And I love that. And again, it happens from time to time. And it happens with some of my favorite authors. Like Joe Abercrombie does that.
He does it a lot.
And I love it. Like, he does the chapter titles, and sometimes he brings in the quotes. And I always appreciate that. And so I'm just like, this is the real deal, you guys. It's good. It is good.
To me, I mean, so I start with The Hobbit, and then we move up, right? To me, I can list you those chapter titles right now, right? Because there are
Riddles in the Dark, for sure.
Yeah, I think there are 19 of them, right? And the other thing too is that it gives you, I hate to say it, but it gives you an excuse to write a chapter that's 5,000 words and be okay, because what you're doing is this is a little story within the story, and it's got a chapter title, and it's got a little quote that is going to give you kind of an emotional feeling for what, and then it's got all kinds of breaks in the middle of it, and I'm not going to overwhelm you, and I'm going to put a picture in here, but I want to explore this theme for this
themes.
Right.
It sets expectations for the chapter without spoiling anything or giving it away. It sets expectations and a tone for the chapter. And I was just like, I love how it's thoughtful and it's smart and it's just well planned out, and that's obvious. So if that is really how it was, then just take the credit for it because I could just see you being like, oh, I'm glad it comes across that way. But that's really how I felt when I was reading it. It felt very planned out, very strategic.
Yeah. And it really is just a way, like the reason it takes up a whole page is I want you to take a breath, right? Because, well, take Rothfuss, for example. There are like 135 chapters.
That's
right. It's just like get. And I don't want that. I want to get done with the theme that we just talked about and just, okay, breathe. Why don't you put the book down? Why don't you go get a cookie?
No, and I think this is just two different reading experiences because I like both. And it just depends on the pacing. It depends on what the author wants your experience to be. It's kind of like listening to an album from beginning to end, the way that the artist curated it to be. And I feel like that's another dying art because we're listening to music on iTunes and Spotify and we get to pick and choose what we listen to. And I'm afraid that this current generation and the next generation is really going to miss out on that experience of putting an album on I mean, I'm young. I'm not going to act like I had a record player. I didn't. But like buying a CD from Sam Goody's for $25 and putting it in your CD player and listening to it from beginning to end, like the artist intended on you to hear and experience their project. And that's why albums will sound different from album to album because it's a project. And I feel like books are the exact same way. And of course you're going to read them in order. What kind of monster would read a book out of order? That's what I'm talking about.
What kind of monster would do that? Publication order.
But there's something to say about authors that really it's a different experience from book to book because sometimes it is those short chapters and you're like, I can't even take a breath, but that's how it's supposed to be. It's a thriller, it's intense. It's you can't stop turning the pages because you're not supposed to. But then some books, like you have said, they have natural stopping points or they have places where you're supposed to take a breath because it was made that way. And it is important for the reader to pick up on that. So nailed it. Very good. Loved it.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you guys want to answer some just silly questions for a minute? Like, just not like, I mean, I don't know about rapid fire because I'm always down for conversation, but I just have some questions that when I get to know people, I feel like this just tells you a lot about people in general. And I mean, I can answer them too if you want, but otherwise, like,
of course we want you to answer them too. What do you
mean? What is your favorite sitcom? Not you, Scott. I already know. Just kidding.
Yeah. Go ahead, Andy.
That's wow.
Do you need a second to think about it? Because Scott wants to talk about Seinfeld.
Seinfeld is the most reliable. Friends can always get you, but it's mainly nostalgia.
Sure.
Weeds I loved, but it wasn't really a sitcom.
Sure.
That was kind of like in the early days of the premium paid for television making those like drama series.
Showtime,
those were like the early days of that, I feel like.
Show.
I like The Office. I wish they would have ended earlier so that I could still like The Office.
Fair.
I'm Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Indeed.
What am I missing then?
I love Parks and Rec as well.
Thank you.
The ones you mentioned.
Yeah.
Ron Swanson is my favorite.
Yeah, Ron Swanson is one of the best characters ever written.
It's very true.
I've got a Funko Pop of Ron around here somewhere.
I do too. Look.
I was gonna actually say because Seinfeld is my answer, but I was gonna say Curb Your Enthusiasm if I couldn't pick Seinfeld. So anything Larry David related. I don't have a Funko Pop to show, but that's cool. You guys
I don't have a lot of Funko Pops, only like 4 or 5, and this guy right here.
This is the only Funko Pop I own.
Nice.
I also have Snape and Voldemort and Deadpool and Jon Snow. That's it.
Oh, all right. I'll give you a little Parks and Rec story.
Yeah.
When I turned 40, my wife said, "I've got your birthday party handled." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Don't worry, I got it." And there's an episode where Leslie makes Ron nervous all day.
Yeah.
Great. And so at the end of the day, she sat me down in the basement
Beautiful.
Turned on Bridge Over the River Kwai,
So good.
got me a bottle of whiskey, and served me a steak in the buff. That was the one thing that was different from the show. It was the best birthday party ever.
That's a good change from the show.
I am
That's the
taking
next
notes. Hold on,
Yeah.
I'm taking notes. That is S tier wifing right there.
Oh my gosh,
What
you
a great
never felt
birthday.
like more of a man in your life. It was
I
just like,
love that.
yes.
I like when he says, "Bring me all the bacon and eggs." Yeah. He's like, "Hold on, I'm worried that you think I meant bring me a lot, but really, all the bacon and eggs." Yeah, I'm obsessed with that show. My favorite ever is probably MASH. It never gets old. I've watched MASH beginning to end, even the weird episodes, more times than I can count. But my husband and I like this. We have it on DVD, and so we just throw in a disc and just let it play. Like, we love MASH. We do that with a lot of shows though. Malcolm in the Middle is criminally underrated.
Yes.
Hilarious show.
Always was. Oh, what's it about?
We like Scrubs, and again, Parks and Rec is like all-time favorite. And then of course all the gold standards. I like The Office, I like Friends, I like Seinfeld. We like all those. But MASH is, and I have a very special place in my heart for Cheers. But really,
Great.
it's got to be MASH. If I'm going to pick one, it's going to be MASH.
I was a huge Night Court fan too. Fantastic show.
I had a Night Court sweatshirt that I wore the entirety of high school.
Beautiful.
I had like a $12 blazer from Goodwill, and I just would put that on over the Night Court sweatshirt, and I'm the coolest guy ever.
You are the coolest.
It's a bit divisive, but I also really love Big Bang Theory. So not everybody does, but I love Sheldon so much that I love Big Bang Theory.
I like Big Bang Theory. My husband and my mom love Big Bang Theory, so we watch a lot of Big Bang Theory. And my kids like it, and I think it's one of those things that's probably a little too inappropriate, like on paper. But they're at the age that it's like, woo, way over their head. And
Yeah, for sure.
I watch tons of stuff that I look back now, and I'm like, that was inappropriate, but it really was over my head. And so the kids really like it. And we watched the spinoff, Young Sheldon. And I'm not a big fan.
I've seen like an episode or two. It wasn't for me.
Well, we're not big fans of spinoffs in general. And the first season was a little rocky, but it has turned into a really good show. We like that one a lot too. Yeah.
I'm sure the kid acting is good.
It found its way. It needed a minute, but it found its way for sure. It's really good.
Well, it's like the first 2 seasons of Parks and Rec. Don't bother watching them.
Yeah. So
Right?
Now that I've seen it all,
I still
so
enjoy
many
them,
times,
but you're right. It's pretty rough at first.
Mark
Well, it's like
Brandanowitz? Come on.
they hadn't figured out who
it's pretty
Leslie Knope was.
Well, in the first season, it was like 6 episodes is all they got booked for, and it was a cheap Office ripoff, right? And then the second season, they tried to figure out what they were doing. They had a terrible male romantic lead, and they fired him. And then the third season, it was like, let's go.
Yeah.
Once they brought in Ben and Chris, that whole show changed. That first episode of season 3, I think, is the flu. They do a drill for like a crisis in the community, and they're doing that, and the whole town has the flu, and it's like, okay, that's where they like really got their footing. That's a great episode.
I just watched today, and it popped up on my YouTube feed. It was Patton Oswalt doing the Star Wars filibuster.
Yeah.
And I just laughed.
Mandalorian
So
love
hard.
armor comes out of it.
He has a couple good roles he plays in that.
Which was the opening to actually Book of Boba Fett, was exactly what Pat Oswalt was saying.
Yeah, I saw a TikTok that was like a side by side of that like playing out, and I was like, he called it.
It was great.
So good.
He's like a notorious Star Wars fan.
He's a huge geek.
Yeah.
And it turns up in his stand-up a lot, which I appreciate. So that's good.
All right, let's see. Okay, so is there a chore that you secretly like a little bit? And then, what is your least favorite chore? Yeah. Okay, I'll go first. I actually really love mowing the lawn. Like, I love mowing the lawn. I don't like weed eating. I don't like weeding the garden. I don't like doing anything else outside almost exclusively other than swimming. I just don't like being outside. But I like being in a hammock too. But I really like mowing. That's my favorite chore. And my least favorite chore is folding and putting away laundry. Which is funny because it's not that hard. Like, it's really not that hard. And it's already clean and it smells good. Like, you think it's way better than like doing dishes or cleaning the bathrooms. But I hate folding and putting away laundry.
I don't mind dishes or laundry. It's not something I seek out or secretly enjoy.
Okay, secretly enjoy was probably a strong way to put it. But I mean, like, what's your least favorite chore?
Bathroom cleaning. It will always be the least favorite.
I don't even consider mowing the lawn to be a chore.
That's how much you like it, yeah.
I really do.
It's audiobook time for me, yeah.
I live in Arizona. We don't have lawns to mow, so
exactly. This is one of the reasons Gloria refused to live in Arizona. She's like, they have rocks. I'm not doing it.
They do have rocks, yeah.
But to me, the smell of gasoline and cut grass is one of the best smells on the planet.
That's money right there, yeah. If somebody could ever successfully synthesize that smell and bottle it.
Well, it's why I'll never buy an electric lawnmower. I need that gasoline smell to make it work.
Yeah, we have a lot of we mow a lot of acreage. And so when I do, to me, that's 4 hours of me time.
Yeah.
That is a lot of time of me getting a nice tan, and it's no one's going to bother me, because I convinced my children at a young age that if they came outside while someone was mowing, they would immediately die and get chopped up. Yeah. Like, that's my biggest fear, is I'm not going to be looking and I'm just going to mow over all my kids. So I told them early on, if I'm mowing, you can stand on the deck and wave your arms, but do not step on the yard. So it's complete alone time, because they are terrified. So I love it.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And then I have headphones and I just listen to my audiobook, and it's great. And I get a tan. Like I said, I love it. I love it. So I love mowing. Yep. Do you guys have a go-to joke you tell? Like, say you're like in a room with a bunch of people and it's like getting a little boring, and you're like, I know what I'll do. I'll tell my joke. Like, what's your joke? Do you have a joke in your pocket?
I have a friend that is really good at telling jokes. I don't have the pacing or the timing for it.
Or the memory, you really. Do. You have the perfect dry delivery. I bet you could. I bet you have to find the right joke.
I'm a much better audience for jokes than I am a teller.
You do have a good laugh. You do have a good laugh. Andy?
So I rarely tell jokes, because I like what we're doing right now. Right. I like playing, and if you can play off something somebody has just said, you get a moment that's perfect and unique to that conversation. I love that. That's my A number one. But once Will got to a certain age, I realized that the one joke that I knew was way too dirty for him. So I needed another joke. So the joke that is currently in my pocket is, there are two problems with drinking out of the toilet. Number one and number two.
Perfect. That's perfect.
Okay, so I agree that, like, the funniest moments that can happen are moments that happen naturally. And my brother is the best at this, because he is super charismatic and he just knows how to talk to people. But what people don't know is that he has a backlog of amusing anecdotes, but he's so good at weaving them into natural conversation that it feels like he's just like so good at talking. And it's because he is. But like, what they don't know is, like, he's basically a stand-up comedian that just has material that he like practices in the bathroom mirror. But he's so good at delivering it, it feels natural. So to me, that is the best. It's when you're like, oh, this is a great opportunity to work in my, that one story that always gets them. But I just love jokes, and so I wanted to see if you guys had any jokes.
I like Andy.
I'm just not very good at telling jokes, because I just laugh too much, and I'm not very good at the delivery.
You're not going to do a joke?
I have jokes. That would be one. Hold on, I have to think about it so I don't mess it up, okay?
Just getting embarrassed.
No, it's fine. What is the difference between a dirty bus stop and a lobster with breast implants? One of them is a crusty bus station, and the other is a busty crustacean.
That's funny, but the problem is that there's a lot of moving parts I would screw it up every time I would try to tell.
That's why I have to, every time I'm like, just hold on a second. Let me think about it before I tell it because I'm going to say it wrong. I wish I could remember more. I really like super cheesy jokes like that.
Busty crustacean.
Because the thing is, if they don't think it's funny, they're still going to laugh because they're going to be like, oh, he thinks this is funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys have any major pet peeves? Like Scott is so easygoing. I'm trying to think of something that would just bother Scott every time.
Most of my pet peeves are reading related and things that people say and do. So, it's annoying.
Like when the spines don't match. Yeah.
I hate the whole, I'm not going to read this series if I can't have every single book matching. Like, that's annoying to me for some reason, or the series isn't complete, so it's not worth reading.
I won't start it because it's not complete. Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff is what annoys me. And it's petty, useless stuff that shouldn't have any bearing on my life, but it does anyway.
What do you got, Andy?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I know what Scott's got.
That's good.
My pet peeve is people hanging around in doorways. It drives me out of my mind. You have decided to stop everything for everyone because you don't know where to pull over and have a conversation with your kid. Get out of the doorway.
That's a good one.
I feel like it wasn't a pet peeve that I had my finger on, but now, yeah.
You'll see it. And then you have to throw them into traffic.
I mean, for me, I think it is people who are habitually late, but they act like it's like a quirky personality trait. They're like, you know me, I'm always late. I'm like, yo, I know you. You're always rude. Is what you are.
That's why I tell you the party started at 5:30.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I have people in my life that
specifically because
I have people in my life that will literally tell them it starts at a different time so that they'll be there in the general vicinity. And it's always like, LOL, you know me. Yeah.
I wish I did.
They actually spelled it out.
But the worst part is I am constantly running behind, but I will not be late.
Yeah.
Like, I will do everything in my power to not be late because I think it's so rude and I think it's so inconsiderate. And I'm like, trust me, like I get it, how easy it could be, but don't let it become like it's not cute, it's not quirky, it's not funny, it's inconsiderate. So do everything you can to be there when you say you're going to be there because it's not funny. And as I said, I am always running late, so I'm very hyper aware of it. So. Yeah. That's mine.
I'm always
I have
excessively
a ton
early.
Really
Drives my wife.
Scott, I had to get past that when like in your 20s in LA, when you show up to a party 15 minutes early, they want to kill you.
I'm sure
you have ruined everything. So like I had to back myself off of that. Like, okay, wait until 9:01. Okay, good.
And honestly, like at parties and stuff, that's different for me than like we're riding together and this is the time we're leaving. Or, I mean, I worked at a dentist office for almost 10 years and it's not funny when you're 12 minutes late. Right. You're late if you're not 10 minutes early to an appointment. Mm-hmm. Like the doctor is ready to see you at that time. So you can't show up 12 minutes late. You just took 12 minutes out of your appointment time and it takes X amount of time to do your procedure. Like that's probably where it got me was being on a strictly scheduled like life like that for so long. It's just like, it's not, and again, stuff happens. Like we have grace, we understand, we can be kind to people. But when you know that person's going to be late, that's a beyond, it happens. But yeah. If you guys could have superpowers, what would you pick? Like, I don't want to limit you to one, but like, what does that look like? You're a superhero. What can you do?
Teleportation.
Yeah. For me, it's easy. It's portal magic. It's being able to go from here. It's because I don't want to be late. Like, how easy would my life be if I could just be like, and just step through
I'm there.
The gateway?
Oh, I forgot.
It's the Wheel of Time and me. It's always gateways for me. But
do all three of us have the same thing? That never happened.
No, I think I would want to be able to read minds. I think that would be cool.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember. So my brothers and I, during COVID, we started doing Zoom calls, and I know I'm not very good at managing Zoom calls, but I headed this up for my family, and we did this thing. There was a show on VH1 called The List. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was a long, long time ago. But basically, it'd be like 3 or 4 pseudo celebrities would show up, and there'd be a theme. And they'd pick their top 3 of whatever it was, and then they just discuss it. And I loved the format, and I kind of want to do that with this at some point. But we would basically just have a topic, and we'd have to do our top 5 or our top 10, and we'd have all these rules because like we really liked all that about it. And oh my gosh, what was I talking about when I started talking about this? This is what I do.
I assumed you were going to have us rank
Superpowers. So anyway, we would do this.
I wanted to not tell her and see what happened.
Yeah, no, that's just how I function. Okay, so we did it with all kinds of different stuff, and it was so fun. And the format is you each tell your favorite, and then if you have any overlapping, you take those and combine them and narrow it down to the best. Because there's a different list for the favorites and the best. So we would do this. It was so fun. And one of them was superpowers. And we're like, and this was kind of different because we're like, top 3 superpowers, what would it be? And by the time I was done talking, my brother was like, do you think you are a superhero? Because I'm positive you're a villain. Because everything I picked was like somewhat self-serving, and I'm like, I don't want to be a villain on like mass scale. I just want to make my life easier. But I would definitely pick like portal magic of any sort, and also shape-shifting, like Mystique from X-Men for sure.
Shape-shifting's good.
That's Gloria's favorite. I can't figure out why. She's like, you don't want to be somebody else? And like,
did we lose him, or am I?
And I'm like, no, I don't want that. But she loves it. She loves that idea.
Mads, are you still there?
Oh.
I think
she's shifting right now into another form.
There you are. Okay, you're back.
Portal magic.
Oh, no. You just think it's Madison. This is the shapeshifter.
That's right.
I wish. You guys, I'm just being honest. If I was a shapeshifter, this is not what it looked like. But yeah, it would basically just be ways to make my life easier, if I'm being real.
What's wrong with that?
I'm a mom. What am I gonna do? I don't know. Do you guys have any questions for me? Is that how interviews go? So I just finished this.
You didn't tell us you didn't tell us for sure what you're going to read next. What are you going to read next?
Okay, so I am in progress with The Forgetting Moon.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have this list over here. Hold on.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to see. The list. All right.
This is the list that we work off of. Mm-hmm. And
oh, wait, who's we? Are you, is it the royal we or
me, myself, and I?
Okay.
Me, myself, and I. I really want to start Golden Fool next, which is the next of the Tawny Man books, Robin Hob. But I'm waiting on Brent. And I'm not waiting on Brent. He would never like me to wait on him. But we're trying to read them together, so I'm not in any hurry. I'd rather do it with a friend. Like Jade Legacy, I'm waiting on a library hold for that. Mm-hmm. Ship of Theseus, I have DNF'd. Fuck that book.
I saw you weren't enjoying it and you weren't going to do it.
It's not what I thought it was going to be. It's not fun. I don't like it, and I don't want to read it. So
I knew I wouldn't like it, so I didn't even try. So there you go.
Well, on paper, I think I would like it, but it's not fun. It's not.
Have you seen this thing, Andy? So it's like a project. It has like puzzles and stuff in the book.
It's like a fake book written by a fictional author in this fictional world, and there's people checking out from the library that are trying to solve a mystery about the author based on the context of the book. And they're writing in the margins and highlighting and circling and then checking it out one after the other and writing it back and forth with the margins. So you read the book and then you try to solve the mystery along with the people. And I think the concept sounds really fascinating. And I thought it would be something that I would just like keep on my bedside. And every evening I'd be like, oh boy, it's time to, And it just felt like a research project. Like, it was not like that's just not how I want my.
It's J.J. Abrams, right? Wasn't he involved?
It's J.J. Abrams and Doug Dorst is who created this project, and I guess the concept and all of the side notes and stuff are J.J. Abrams, but Doug Dorst wrote the text that they're deciphering.
That and House of Leaves are just never going to be a thing for me. So.
I think House of Leaves looks much more digestible. This is just not what I was like. Andy, it has a decoder in it, like a wheel.
I just want a story. I don't need a project.
I don't work that hard. Yeah.
It was more work than I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to shelve that. But like I said, I'm a little bit into the Forgetting Moon, so I'll probably just just make that one my main book from here on out. And I'm glad I'm doing a reread because there is a lot there, and I think it's. I'm picking up on stuff already that I did not pick up on the first time around, which of course, that's the point of a reread, but I'm enjoying myself quite a bit. So I'll probably just go with that one full force, full steam ahead until Brent is ready for Golden Fool. And then I'm going to be back in with Robin Hob.
Golden Fool is so good. And then Fool's Fate is just a masterpiece.
That's like your second favorite of all of her books, right?
Oh, yeah. Fool's Fate is so good.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. All right, I'm looking over my list here, and I feel like we have really covered most of what I wanted to talk about. But guys, I'm not in any hurry, so if there's anything you guys wanted to chat about or any questions you have for each other or whatever, I'm having a great time. So,
are you working on the next project? I'm not rushing you, but are you working on the next thing?
Yeah, what's going on with that? Like, I feel like you left it open for a sequel, where it's like I'm comfortable telling people it's a standalone because it stands on its own so well.
Yeah.
But you left the door open where you really could come back and go nuts with this world. Like, what's your mindset there?
Okay.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
It's not like it's the first time he's been asked this.
Well, and the problem is I don't have a satisfying answer. And let me tell you why. The whole self-pub thing is exhausting and eats so much of your time. And once you decide to add in 21 illustrations, becomes more and more expensive.
Right.
And if I did another Blackjack book, it would have to be up to the same quality, which would take a ridiculous amount of effort, but not just on my part. It would take, James Turner Mohan has disappeared into the ether. We do not know where he has gone. So we need to find another.
I was going to ask you about James. Like, who is he? How'd you get connected with him?
May have disappeared.
What's the story behind the illustrations?
He may have disappeared to the Arctic Circle for real. That's one of the rumors. Yeah, but the idea of doing a second Blackjack book, and here the real thing is that I don't have an audience to create a second book for. Nobody's begging me and banging on my door saying we need more of this. I am so lucky that you have taken a look at it and people are talking about it, but it's not like I've sold 1,000 books or anything like that, right? So I think if Blackjack caught an audience that was big enough to go, okay, I'm not going to lose $5,000 on doing another book.
Right.
Oh, okay. That would make sense. And Andrew hates me for that because he just wants another book.
I'm somewhat the opposite. I don't want a sequel because one of the things I don't like is when an author catches fire and then they continue on a series that isn't really supposed to be a series. Take it up as they go.
Yeah. I guess that's my question though. Is there more story there? Like, say the book blew up and there's an audience, there's a demand, and there's a desire for you to do that there. Do you know where that would go for it? Like, is the story there?
Yeah. I mean, I've always known where it would go. And, Scott, I think you're absolutely right in that that's a standalone book. That brings that story to a close.
Mhm.
So coming back and doing another coming of age story about Jack doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But where I feel fortunate is that enough people have been like, "Oh, I like this character. No, I like this character," and being
Yeah.
able to dig into them more would be a lot of fun.
And that's a great point. It's because
Yeah.
the side characters in the story are so strong.
I love me
To
some
the-
Chance is great.
Yeah, to the point where like you're like, how did I become so attached to these characters in this short amount of time? And they're all characters that if you pick the most bizarre side character, or like I'm making a whole book just about this person, I'm in. Like I think that you built enough there that if there are side stories, that even if it's not a series in which it's books 1 through 6 and you have to read them in order, even if they were like just in the world, I would definitely be interested in that.
Yeah.
I've downloaded the prequel, but I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I'm going to.
I haven't either.
If you read the prequel, please do me a favor and give me your honest feedback.
I will, for sure.
Because it's still at the point where I can change it, right? And
Right.
people saying, "Oh, I needed a little more of this," or "Well, there wasn't enough this," because it's not very long, right? It's just little. It's 3 chapters, and it's just a little tiny character study. It's basically about the people who are always on their guard and always need to be protected and defended because that's where they come from, and kind of exploring that type of person and maybe what it is necessary to get past it. Because that's not the super healthiest way to go about living your life. But like with other books, that's what I would do is explore different themes, right? Like using those characters to do that because I don't have anything else to say on coming of age story.
Sure.
So
right, that story's been written already. What I thought was interesting is that when we get to Keymark, Jack clearly already has a reputation. I'd like to dig into that a little more about the legend, about the stories they already know, about who they thought they were getting. Like I think that there is more there, and so I would love more stories in this world. But like I said, I don't need it to be a series. And I think one person who did that well is Christopher Eames, because Kings of the Wild is a standalone story. But then he wrote Bloody Rose. Is Bloody Rose a sequel to Kings of the Wild? Not necessarily. You could read them totally separate from each other, but if you've read Kings of the Wild first, you're going to appreciate the Bloody Rose more. But those are 2 standalones that are written in the same world. And I just think like when you've created something so cool like Keymark, and even like Joe Abercrombie has said this, like world building is not his, according to him, what he believes, world building is not his strong suit. And so he's like, if I write more, it's probably going to be in this world because I already did all the work for it. Like I've already created the rules and I've created the magic and I've created the, the lore. Like it's already done. And like, that's not what I'm best at. So like, clearly I'm going to like write it till it's dead because that's not my strong suit. And so like, I think Keymark is so cool that I would just love to go back there someday.
Oh, that's nice of you to say. I feel the same way about Narnia, and I feel like, the idea is you put together a story that has something to say to me about an emotional resonance that has weight, and so if I'm lucky enough to do another one, it would be me doing a mega deep dive on an aspect of life that I think is important, probably especially for young people, and but that resonates through your adult life, because if adults can't read it, I don't think I've done my job. So it's got to be something more than just run to the next action sequence, which I love. I love all the action sequences, and it's great to put those together. But I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for themes that you don't have to notice in order for the book to be good, right?
Yeah.
Work as
doesn't need to be spelled out for you. But when somebody, because the thing is, like, I'm not necessarily always the most, I don't want to say I'm not an observant reader, but I don't necessarily pick out all the themes and the layers but the first time someone points it out, I'm like, oh, That is totally what that book, like, I get it. I just have a harder time defining it sometimes. And so I need a book to have clear themes, though, because it just never works without it. So I may not be the best at always defining it or pointing it out, but I notice when it's not there. Trust me. Like, when it's just a story for the sake of a story, it doesn't work the same.
Yeah. And the flip side of it is, didn't you hate it when you would read a book and your college professor would then tell you all about the themes that they were exploring? And it's just like, you ruined it.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, if you can
analyze this thing, or I no longer enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it's funny how different people just take, it's just different types of enjoyment. Because some people, like, they read a book so they can dissect it.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, like, I just don't need that to enjoy it. But it's like, if the potential to dissect it isn't there, it's obvious. And I notice it, and I don't want anything to do with it. And I think Andrew was right when he did kind of call this like an instant classic. And I do hope it catches on. And I hope it is something that is in everyone, in everyone's house in 50 years or whatever. That'd be awesome. But even if it's not, the point is, it has the makings of that, because it feels familiar in the ways that are cozy and recognizable and make you feel comfortable reading fantasy, but it's still unique. Like, I can think of lots of books that it gave me the vibes of it, but I can't think of one other book that felt the same.
I can't. It's really hard to find things to people are like, well, what's it like? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. This is what I wrote down, and I don't know why, because even looking back, I mean, because again, I wrote these notes as I'm reading. And so I said, it feels like Chronicles of Narnia meets John Carter, meets Rhaenyra, meets Lord of the Rings, meets Coming of Age, meets King of the Wild. That's some good writing right here. Have you ever thought about asking me to write for you?
Yes.
But
write a book too.
It's not in this book is not like any of those books, but there was something from your book that reminded me of something I loved from each of those series or each of those books. And I like that. I like that when you can kind of put your finger on it, but you can't quite explain it.
Yeah. And that's good company. I mean, because the actual John Carter is a lot of fun.
I love Edgar Rice Burroughs. I'm reading all those John Carter books right now, and I'm having so much fun with them.
And that movie died a horrible death, and I was
so
sad because it was.
So I showed that movie to my kids because I read the book and I thought, there was a movie of this. Let's check it out. So we looked it up on Disney Plus. The CGI is a little rough because it was the time. Like, you can't help it. That's what CGI looked like back then. Like, it just is what it is. But, like, first of all, it's good. Second of all, it has an awesome cast, and it's fun. And my kids have watched it like 5 times. And as soon as my daughter my daughter could read it now, but my son's the one that's really interested in it. I was like, wait till you get a little bit older, because there's books about this, and a bunch of them. So I like John Carter. I think that's a cool story.
I felt like the movie didn't bring anything new that hadn't been done already, which is a real problem when you're dealing with a story that's 100 years old. So, Well,
I think the problem is the movie felt cliche and cheesy because Edgar Rice Burroughs invented these tropes. So everything since then has ripped off of it.
And he
invented green aliens. He invented a sexy Deja Thoris needing to be rescued, but then turning around and also being a badass herself. Like, all these things that movie just felt cliche. But what the people being hard on it didn't realize is that story is 150 years old, and he invented all of those tropes. So that movie, it was tough for the movie, but you look back and you're like, if you've read the book, they did a great job with that movie. And I like that actor. He was in the Terminal List, and he should be in more stuff. I don't remember his name, but he should be in more stuff. He's really good.
He was supposed to be Gambit in the X-Men movies, but that died.
Huh. Interesting. Well, guys, it's getting a little late.
It is, yes.
I mean, Scott, it's not late for you.
No, it's not too bad. It's 9 here. It's all right.
Yeah, he's living that early life over in. Yeah. What time zone are you identifying as?
Arizona is its own. What am I identifying as? Arizona.
Yeah,
is
don't you switch back between Mountain Time and Western?
Yeah, so we don't have daylight savings time. So
I
half
know.
of the year we're the same time zone as Denver. The other half the same time zone as Los Angeles. So we're on.
Now you guys have the right of it. Daylight savings is whack.
Everybody should get rid of it. It's nonsense. It may have been useful when people were agrarian, but it doesn't make a lot of sense these days.
Yeah, I feel like it's antiquated. We have aged out of it, but either way, where we are right now, it's getting a little late. So I am going to let you guys go, but thank you so much for hanging out and chatting with me. I had a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed getting to know Andy, but also getting to know Scott more too. I thought this was really fun. So thank you guys for hanging out with me and like helping me launch my first episode. And I hope you got the point by the end of this episode for those of you who watched the whole thing. But please go buy yourself a copy of The Legend of Blackjack and most importantly, read it. Like,
and buy one for your friends and one for your kids.
And tell your friends about it. And then
members.
like message me. Let me know what you thought.
Available for birthdays, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, whatever you need.
Yeah. And I'm just really glad that I gave it a shot because I do not read a lot of self-pub. And for no other reason other than the fact that I've got a whiteboard that has a bucket list still on it. Like I want to read all the good fantasy. And I'm still working my way through all the must reads. And so I'm just glad that I was like, you know what, let's go crazy this month. Let's read something new. And I'm just really glad that I did that because I mean, it's one of the best books I've read this year. And like, I've read some good books this year. So thank you so much for joining me. And guys, please check out The Legend of Blackjack.
For sure.